Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. Now, we touched on an issue earlier in the week, and the issue was about the renaming of Stamford Bridge. That seemed to resonate with a lot of you. The reason that we were speaking about that article is because I'd stumbled upon a brilliant article written by Dan Levine about this issue. It really is his story. He's broken it. And I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Dan today. Dan, firstly, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
Please tell me that we are not going to be, when we move stadiums, it looks beautiful, it's not going to be named the Coca-Cola Arena.
I don't know if I can tell you that, I'm afraid. There's been an issue that's been going on for some time since the 2011 attempt to take over the ground and to move potentially away from Stamford Bridge, whereby it was always planned there was going to be naming rights around the ground. Now, the club has never come out officially and said anything about this, but I know this from very good sources that's the case. With the plans for the ground quite advanced now at Stamford Bridge, it's still part and parcel of the deal.
So it's looking like it's going to happen. They are at least exploring the idea of naming rights.
Certainly, and I've heard from very, very good sources, both at the club and also related directly to the development, that it is highly likely that naming rights will be sold.
This is a disaster.
Well, there are a number of ways you can look at it, I suppose, aren't there? First of all, there's people have got an obvious attachment to the name Stamford Bridge. I doubt that's ever going to go. People will always call it Stamford Bridge, won't they? I'm sure you will.
Yes, I will, but I think that it's bigger than that. It's not, fans calling it that affectionately as a sort of homage to once was isn't good enough for a lot of people, I don't think.
No, and I'm sure, I'm fairly certain that the club will try and be clever about this, that when they take things forward, they'll learn from the mistakes made by Newcastle United, who dropped an absolute clanger by calling it the Wonga Arena. And one would imagine, again, this is, we're guessing here really, but if it's going to be called something, it will be the brand name arena at Stamford Bridge.
So, for example, the Yokohama Arena at Stamford Bridge.
Well, you know, it's a handy brand, it's big, and if you've seen the plans, it looks like a big tyre.
Surely not. That can't have factored into the. I mean, now you've pointed that out. I went down. There's a video up actually. If you haven't seen it, if you want to see the plans, we made a video, so check it out. It does actually look slightly tyre-esque. I can't believe that was in the planning. I can't believe.
Well, you have to look at it from the point of view of the brand, Yokohama's side. They obviously, if they wanted to get involved in football sponsorship, they want to go full in for it. They're paying Chelsea £40 million a season just to have the name on the shirt at the moment. If they want to go further into it, they want something that fits with their brand. So you would imagine they would probably be interested because of that.
So it would be a financial gain for Chelsea. It would cost Yokohama. Are we talking huge amounts of money? Sort of the sums that Chelsea just couldn't afford to turn down in this era?
Well, looking at things that have gone in the past, when Arsenal did the first big deal over the Emirates, they never quite revealed how much money they got, but people thought at the time it was maybe about £5 to £8 million a season. That was back in 2004.
Right.
Now, you're looking at teams like Real Madrid who are looking at maybe £15 million a season. They're going out to rename the Bernabeu. So, if you pitch somewhere in the middle there, if you think Chelsea could get at least maybe, just plucking a number out of the air, £12 million a season, that's potentially £200 for every one of 60,000 seats in the ground. A £200 subsidy because of a change of name.
God, that's a really interesting way to look at that. So, effectively, what the question is, for Chelsea fans, me being one of them, a season ticket holder, would you pay an extra £200 on your season ticket to prevent this happening? That's how it would have to be looked at. I personally, I think football's too expensive as it is, but the idea of preserving Stamford Bridge, how far, I know that you really did cover that story well and were part of the fight to preserve Stamford Bridge and to keep us there. It would be a shame to do all that work and then lose the name, wouldn't it? Well,
it depends how much you think the name is lost by that. And there's all sorts of issues. It opens up, as you say, lots and lots of things about the democratising of football, about gentrification, about the cost of tickets, about branding within the game. Football, like it or lump it now, is big business. Yeah. And very little is bigger than the Premier League. And multinational companies want to be a part of it. If you look at the 20 Premier League teams, their shirt sponsors, 15 of them, are not British companies. And if you look, you go back to the classic days when beer companies and electronics companies used to be on your shirt. Now it's online betting companies. Now it's forex trading companies.
Yeah.
So the game has completely changed. And people, often in the Far and Middle East, want to find a way of hooking onto something popular to increase their brand, and that's where we are.
So I'm sort of reading between the lines and thinking of like past precedent. This is going to happen, isn't it?
It's difficult to know until, of course, the club comes out and says it's definitely the case. But I think it seems highly likely it's going to happen. Certainly, I've been aware it's a likelihood for about 4 or 5 years.
See, for me, this is quite depressing news. I love Stamford Bridge. I love the fact that we're the only London club who've played at one stadium, and Chelsea only exists because of Stamford Bridge. I think that it was almost a travesty to lose that and to rename it simply because somebody can come in with a fortune. It just doesn't sit comfortably. But, the flip side of the same coin, I appreciate how important the money can be. Do you think that this is as disastrous as I do, or can you find a positive to this?
Well, I'm a journalist at the end of the day, and what I'm looking at here is a story, obviously. I can see that a lot of people are very, very passionate about the history, about the name, and I fully understand that because, to a large part, I'm a fan as well. But also, I can see that there are the other side of it is about the cash values, about how much it costs to go to football. People say, yeah, but we have got £1 billion. Chelsea have got £1 billion billionaire owner. But of course, he's not there to continually put his hand in his pocket. He wants to run Chelsea as a viable business. That means, in this day and age, if you don't sell something that every other club in Europe is selling, then you're at a disadvantage.
So it's just whether the club handle it correctly. I suppose if, for what you've suggested there, it could be a brand at Stamford Bridge, that would be okay, I suppose. I could make my peace with that. Do you think there's a chance that they would completely lose Stamford Bridge from the name?
I think that Chelsea have learned an awful lot from some bad PR exercises in the past. They've learned from things like Benitez. They've learned from... Can we talk about him on here?
Oh, yeah, so we'll have to bleep it.
They've learned from the business over the attempt to buy the CPO shares 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will have learned from the Newcastle United experience with the Wonga Arena. So one would imagine that they'll try and go for something that will play out well with fans. I doubt very much they want something that will cause uproar.
Okay, so what I think is what we can sort of conclude here is that the chances of this happening are looking quite likely. We have to hope as Chelsea fans that they will preserve our history and keep Stamford Bridge within the realms of the name of the stadium. That's the bottom line here, really, isn't it? The way it's looking, at least.
This is of course different to the Emirates. The Emirates, before it was the Emirates, was a rubbish tip.
Yeah, still is, you could argue.
Stamford Bridge has always been Stamford Bridge for 110 years. What will people call Stamford Bridge? Just because there's a different building there, realistically, people call it Stamford Bridge, won't they? The City of Manchester Stadium in Manchester, Man City's ground, now called the Etihad. Some people still call it Eastlands, some people call it the City of Manchester. Stamford Bridge, I think most people in common parlance will always be Stamford Bridge, won't it?
I like the thought of that, and I think that's a really nice note to finish on. What I need from you guys, will you please comment below, let us know what you think of this issue, because this is one that is close to all of our hearts as Chelsea fans. So I'm quite worried by this and quite upset by it, to be completely honest, but we need to know your thoughts. So please comment below, let us know exactly what you think. And Dan, thank you so much for coming in. Really nice to talk to you about that.
Good to be here.
Cheers. Welcome to Backpage Blues. I'm joined by Charlie the Hurricane Skillam from the Mail Online, and it's time for my favourite part of the week. We're going to answer your questions. So firstly, thank you very much for getting them into us, and secondly, we should probably make a start and get through as many as possible. Shall I go?
Yeah, go on.